Okay, we should be live, so let's just check. Let's have a look. Let's just give it a second for the Tinternet to kick in. Come on. That can go away. I think we're all good. Let's just have a quick look. Here we go. Okay, all good. Excellent. So we're live. So welcome to our weekly catch-up chats. Jo is going to explain why she is randomly lying in a field. Not just doing it for health. Oh, excellent. Vicky's there as well. Let's just bring Vicky.
Sorry.
Okay, we're live anyway, Vic, so don't worry. Welcome. So Jo's just going to give us an explanation as why she's randomly lying on the ground in a field.
Go. So, yeah, normally on a Friday afternoon, I would be running Hoopers and agility classes. But as you can see by the beautiful big blue sky.
Oh, wow.
I know, it's gorgeous. This is Greater Manchester.
Wow.
It's too hot. So the place that we use for agility is like a metal barn, basically.
Oh, wow.
And during the daytime when the sun is high, it's like an oven. And we've done obedience classes. But it's too hot for sports. It's just too hot. Inside the barn is probably about 26 degrees.
Oh wow.
So it's too hot.
Can't do that.
So I've cancelled classes. I didn't have time to get home after the first class. So I figured I'd go live from the field, but it's really windy. So I'm laying in the grass to avoid the wind.
I wish I could be there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great.
Beautiful.
How are you, Vic? Happy anniversary, Vic.
Thank you so much. Yes, it was our 26th wedding anniversary yesterday.
You could have committed murder and been out by now, Vic. He could have.
He could have done. I'm like, he put up with me for this long. God.
That's amazing.
I know. It's amazing.
Wow.
26. We've known each other for 28. Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
There you go. I know. Anyway, but I did manage to see the show, and it was.
So go on,
because it made me cry.
Yeah, I was going to say. So go on, thoughts then, Vicky, because we had the three cases were the two. Let me get their names right. The two dogs that were fighting,
Theo and Graham.
Graham. What else would you call the Pomeranian? Graham. We had Sid, Great Dane, and then we had the little terrier with Jo that had the issues with the delivery man. So really, again, really standard behaviors that a lot of people experience challenges with. We've obviously covered on the Bad Dog Academy this season with dog-to-dog fighting, in-house dog-to-dog fighting. Jo did that brilliantly with the Spaniel and the Border Collie, and obviously coming again with Vic. Sid, the Great Dane, enrichment and exercise meeting his needs was really the takeaway from that dog. And obviously with Jo was about having techniques and tactics to help the dog and the owners deal with situations when the dog got over aroused. Yes. So let's just break them down. So first up we had, I'm trying to think of the order. It was Vic's case of Theo and Graham. So give us a little bit of insight into that one, Vic.
Yes, I will.
And that case was really hard. I've got to say, those dogs.
I've got a lot to say about that case.
Oh, God.
Go. That was a tough one. Yeah. I'm glad you got that case instead of me, I have to say.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to bring it up because when you can't find something, when you need to find something, but you can't find it. Yeah, that's what's happening right now. I've forgotten the name of the female dog.
Leia.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I got it right here now. Thank you, Leia. Okay. So
made me think of Star Wars, Princess Leia.
Okay. So do you know, I think it illustrates perfectly how you get your dogs for yourselves, but they wanted to grow their sort of canine family, and that's understandable. But I think it's just a gross misunderstanding of, like, you bring these animals into your home and they're your babies, and that's for so many of us they are. There are babies, there are children, there are wards, there are but they didn't understand. So when Leia came into season, and those boys had a great relationship, they all had a great relationship. They're just doing what dogs doing. And they did what dogs do. And those two males both wanted to mate with her. And they weren't
I think
allowed.
people underestimate how powerful the hormones are that are involved in this.
Exactly.
Like, thinking about classes, when we have girls come into season in our classes, they're not allowed in class, and not necessarily
No.
because of them. Like, I've had 2 dogs who are best of friends in class have a fight over where a female dog who'd been in season 10 days finished, clear of season, where she peed, and they had a scrap over sniffing where she peed.
There you go. I mean, that sort of illustrates a point, and I just think that the couple had no idea. They had no idea about what to do when she came into season. They had no idea how their male dogs would respond. I'm sure they knew that the male dogs would try and mate with her, but they had no idea. And then, of course, this relationship that I still believed had some I think it could have been helped. but here's the problem. When the family came to me, or when I saw this case, I was like, okay, well, we'll see. I've worked a lot of multi-dog cases where this has been the case. But here's the big kicker. What we really needed in order for this case to have any chance of success was for Leia to go away for a bit. And the good thing is that the woman's mom lived close by and would have taken Leia. So it would given the chance, even though she was spayed, it would have been given the chance for Theo and Graham, for them to just work with Theo and Graham and to help that relationship.
Mhm.
But Theo was the lady's baby, and she had become completely attached to Theo, and there was no way she was going to let Theo go. She was anywhere, even to her mum's who lived close by. But I really, there was no way she was going to let Theo go per se.
Mhm.
So 2 things. I'm not being very clear. First of all, Mum could have taken Leia for a good month. That's what I had hoped. Take Leia for a month, get her out of there, work on the boys' relationship. If when you bring Leia back and you slowly reintroduce her again, if that's a problem, and there's still this, and these dogs would have fought to the death. They had to pull them apart many times. Then if there had been rehoming, Theo could have gone to her mum's.
Mhm.
So that it was just Leia and Graham. So everybody in the house was safe. Everybody was stress-free. And that she could see Leia, Theo a lot still at her mum's. See what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I'm not explaining this. It's early in the morning here. Well, it's not early, but
So
I'm woken up.
that case really brought up several really quite difficult conversations that as professionals that we sometimes have to have. And one of those most common challenging conversations is putting the dog's needs sometimes before our own. We have an emotional connection with the dog, and it is possible that the environment, the circumstances aren't suitable for the dog, or vice versa. The dog isn't suitable for the environment. Do you consider rehoming? And rehoming a dog is not something that anybody should think of lightly, but it should be a discussion in certain circumstances where the situation isn't conducive for any party being healthy and happy. And we have to think there's 3 competing entities whenever we look at a dog and human relationship. You have the dog. Obviously, we have to consider the dog's welfare, the dog's needs. We also have to consider the human and the human parties involved and the carers in the village, I call it, around the dog. And we also have to think of the wider society. And all of those things, all those entities have a competing say in what happens to the dog. And we would love to think, well, I can live, if I lived in 40 acres with my dog and it had a behavioral challenge, I can manage it and never have to leave my property. Absolutely brilliant. then society doesn't necessarily have to have a massive say, unless obviously we've got delivery people or people come into my home. Again, that can be worked around. So there is always give and take, but it's a really valid conversation to have when you are in a situation where you have dog-to-dog aggression and you find yourself so overwhelmed and stressed by the conflict that nobody in the house is happy, and you have to balance that out. There is ways forward from it. Obviously, a lot of people live with their dogs in segregation. One dog
Yes.
lives in one room, and that is for a lot of people an appropriate solution, and one
Yep.
that they are happy to live with. Other people, for practical reasons, it may be family members, they might have young children, but they choose not to go down that route. And there is no judgment in any of these situations. It's about taking the case as an individual. That was a really challenging scenario. And I have to say, I've been in that position. And I would say the most common cause of inter-dog aggression, conflict, whatever you want to call it, with dogs that live in the same house is normally to do with hormones or resources.
That's it.
Those two are the most common triggers. So the scenario that I had was absolutely down to hormones. One of my males, my border collie, had mated my female border collie. They had a litter of puppies. When she came back in her next cycle, he was obviously assuming that that was his female. My young boxer was of an age where he also thought that she was an option for him. And although she wasn't actually in season, she was emitting hormones in anticipation or preparation for coming in season. That was a catalyst. That was enough. And I had another dog that had been in season. So there was a lot of hormones in the house. And that was the blue touch paper that absolutely those two dogs were absolutely 150% gonna do damage, serious damage, to the point of where the boxer got hold of the border collie and I literally had to choke him off. And I was in a position of going, what on earth am I going to do with these dogs? And obviously I'm a very experienced dog owner. I've owned dogs for 30 years. I've owned probably close to 30 dogs of various breeds. And I was in a position where I'm going, I don't know if I can do this, because it was stringent management. It was separating dogs. For me, it was a long process to rehab their relationship. So what I did was, exactly as Vic suggested, the female dog, when she was in season, she went to stay with a friend. So she was now out of the equation. The two male dogs were both, I used chemical castration on both of them to stem the level of hormones and that in the environment. And I was militant about separating them. And then what I did over probably once the chemical castration took effect, I then rehab their relationship. So every single day I would make a commitment to having a communal activity similar to what Vic did, where she walked the two dogs together, and we had positive activities that they did specifically together. So it would initially be loose lead walking, and then it would be one dog they were very trained, so I could leave one dog in a position, a down or a sit, and I would throw the ball for the other dog or give him, and then I'd ask him to wait. And I did this, and it took, I would say, all in about 6 months for their relationship to be rehabbed, to the point of where I would say they went from absolutely, they were 100% going to do serious damage to each other. And I would have said absolutely to the point of possibly, permanent damage, for want of a better term, to where they had a truce. And they actually moved full circle, and they actually started to become almost like what I would call drinking buddies. They would be like, they'd hang out together, they would sort of sync up, because effectively that's what I'd cultivated between the two of them. But it was let me tell you now, it was a lot of work.
Yes.
It was not something that I would advise many people to embark on. It is doable, but it took about 6 months. And even now, when those two dogs, the boxers now passed, even now, if I have a female that's due in season and I know roughly their cycles, I'm very aware of there's a shift in the dynamics of my household, and I then will implement management, and I'm mindful of who's out with whom and any subtle signs, and I'm mindful of resources in the home, because very quickly that could be a catalyst for an issue. Having multiple dogs in your home requires an absolute commitment to management, training, enrichment, exercise, individual time. It's just a way of being. You cannot assume that they're all going to get on. I always say to people in multi-dog households, I have dogs that are absolutely family members and friends and best friends. I have dogs that are flatmates and housemates, and I have dogs that are friendly neighbors, and I have dogs that are acquaintances that sort of nod at each other, and they would have no reason to really interact. If one dog dropped off the face of the earth, the other probably wouldn't even notice. But what we have is a communal set of rules, that means you might not be their bestie, but you have to be around them and you have to be safe. And there's certain ways and boundaries and rules that we have to keep everybody safe. And that means, like, I don't have high level activity where all my dogs are buzzing around in my home, because I know that could easily be a catalyst for problems. I'm mindful if I have things like bones or toys, I'm mindful of not just having one, I'll have multiple, so that there's no catalyst for resource guarding issues and so forth. It really does take a commitment to a real commitment to dog ownership. And I'd say for a lot of Joe average people, that is a lot to take on, and probably not what they necessarily signed up for. What would you say, Vic?
You're absolutely right. And so we were looking at everything, and of course management was a huge thing, and they were managing it with boxes and stuff, trying to separate the dogs. And so, you know, I said, you get yourself a fence and inside your house, you know, and one of those collapsible ones that can separate dogs, you know, we call them X-pens as well, and get one of those, and then you can block the visual as well, and so you can keep both dogs safe. But here is the thing. First of all, you know, Kamal, when we sit down and we tell them what's going on, and sometimes our learners are they're relieved to find out, so that there's a path forward. Mm-hmm. I don't think they were very happy, especially the mom, I'll call her. I don't think mom was very happy with me when I said your dogs don't feel safe, because they didn't. Mm-hmm. How can you feel safe when you live under that threat all the time, that threat of violence? And also that I think they've definitely lost trust with each other, but I don't think they've got a lot of trust in you guys, because you're not keeping them safe. Mm-hmm. And so, and their living environment was very small. Mm-hmm. Which meant that there wasn't really any space to keep the dogs separated and safe. Mm-hmm. And I also think the family came in thinking that I'd have some kind of magic wand and it would all be fine, even though the dogs had now a long pattern of behavior. Mm-hmm. So it was tricky. And I saw, I mean, you see there, even after working for a couple of hours, you've got space. We did agility together with the dogs. You saw that even it wasn't just about getting the dogs close to each other. How close can we get the dogs? Yeah. No, it was, can we have these dogs? Is there hope that these dogs can be closer and that they can keep working? And it showed that there was hope. That's all I was trying to do. But there's a behavior plan that has to be followed. Yeah. And I told them, if it is not followed, you will not see success. And so management and training and patience and time, this is what it needed. Mm. But just the couple with their work schedules, their understanding, their commitment, their willingness to really, it was too much. But if you've got that kind of situation, we can work with it. And I really believe that Theo and Graham could have had a great relationship again, or at least a relationship where they were able to be around each other, but not truly want to fight. Unfortunately, sometimes it's just not applicable to some of our learners.
And I think the thing, again, and we're saying this without judgment. Let's be
real. 100%.
You know, that having inter-house dog aggression, where you have, and if you've signed up for as a Joe average dog owner, if you've had this ideology that you want to have multiple dogs of a certain breed, or you want to have multiple dogs in your home, that comes with a level of commitment that goes beyond that of the single dog owner or two dog owner. Whenever you hit numbers 3 and beyond, you are talking having a pack of dogs, and you need to understand the individual characters. You need to understand the individual needs of that dog. You need to understand the mix of genders, male, female, hormones, how that will impact your dog's life and what will happen in their gestational cycle and so forth, or their hormones changing. You need to understand and make the decision about whether you're going to bring a young male into a house with an established male. What's that going to impact? Are you going to have a mixture of males and female? If that's the case, then you need to really understand that the impact of if that female comes into heat, how that's going to have a domino effect on the relationship with the two males, and really enter into it with eyes wide open.
Yeah.
The majority of dogs across the world, most normal people have 1-2 dogs, and they don't see necessarily the extent of having a group of dogs behaving in a somewhat more natural manner, if we want a better term. I.e., you will have dogs in a large group, but they will be inter-dog squabbles. They will be, there will be resource guarding. There will be communication. It will all be happening. And as a domestic dog owner, it really means that you need to upskill your understanding of behavior, the nuances of communication, management, and so forth, if you're going to make that commitment to having a lot of dogs.
I agree with that, Kamal, completely. I agree. And so many people enter it with eyes wide shut. And and this family was no exception. And again, I'm not shaming. I'm just telling the truth. I'm just saying it. And look, we've all had multi-dog households. We all know that there has to be some degree of management, even if there are no problems at all. You still got to manage. You still got to give dogs some alone time, some space, some time, because like there will be squabbles.
Yeah. I mean, I have it, obviously, I have big dogs and little dogs. And even that dynamic of the little dogs being around the big dogs, my dogs are great with the little dogs. But it's just the sheer, one dog runs a bit fast and they clip, recently Sugar had a cruciate operation done. And it was because one of my big dogs accidentally didn't see her, let her out the van, landed directly. And it was purely innocent. It was a freak accident that happened that was really unfortunate. Thank God it was nothing more. But it's that little tiny thing, just the ratio. If I had a small dog come out, it probably wouldn't have been any problem. But it's that little thing that you have to be super aware of managing, those little nuances that can keep your dog safe and hopefully nothing untoward happening. But definitely, obviously, in the 2 instances that we've had that in the Bad Dog Academy on Channel 4 at 8 p.m. on Thursdays, we have seen 2 really extreme cases. We saw Joe's case with the Spaniel and the Border Collies, extreme reaction to each other, and the same with the 2 dogs that we've seen. Now, what normally happens, and as you see on the Bad Dog Academy, is people are coming to us when the issue is partly established and there's a lot of history behind that. So you have to be realistic about the timeline that it's going to take. As I said, with my 2 dogs, it took me at least 6 months to get to the point of where I went, okay, I can have these 2 off lead, safe, and let them have more freedom together. And even then I was probably really, really vigilant for another probably 6 months where I felt okay. And even then, throughout the whole of their lives, I would always be observant of those 2 dogs, and I would never put them in a situation where I felt they felt trapped or compromised. And that's just advocating for the individual. But yeah, really, really, I mean, obviously great work on your part, Vic, but a challenging case.
Challenging, yeah.
People about this series of the Bad Dog Academy is we deliberately have picked cases where there is really contentious issues at play. That was a choice when we came into this series. One, because we wanted to show not just, straightforward, or my puppy doesn't come back, or my puppy isn't house trained. Those are standard things that probably most people would feel comfortable with dealing with and probably would understand, you could very easily get a resolution on. But the cases that we've shown and we presented, if you look at Ghost, the Kennel Corso, you look at Joe's case, Sean's case, in my cases, they are really challenging. And it's to show people not only that you are not alone in the process of resolution, that the power of reinforcement-based dog training and understanding that it isn't going to be a quick fix. Please don't look for a quick fix if you want long-term change. You've got to be willing to put the work in. That we offer a place that doesn't have judgment. And sometimes there is a level of truth that needs to be said. Listen, here's the facts. We can help you, but here's what you need to do and really commit yourself to. And I think that trying to sell people, the misconception that you can come to a trainer or go to a trainer and they can click their fingers and fix it is so disingenuous, and actually it's not actually effective.
Yeah, but people see it on social media, and then, you know, people who obviously employ the whole shock collar stuff, they can just, you know, whap a shock collar on and like that, and it looks like it's all good. So I think people a lot, which of course we know it's not, but I think it lulls people into this sort of false sense of like, oh, well, you should be able to fix my dogs. And then, you know, okay, well, let's take two guys that live in the same household fighting, as in like really fighting. And let's try fix that in a couple of hours. Or by putting a shock collar on. Are you kidding me? So people seem to understand it when it's people. And because our brains are very similar to dog brains, then, you know, but dogs are different, right? You should be able to train them. We always talk about training dogs, training it out of them, training. Once the dogs are trained, it'll all be fine. And it's just such BS.
Yeah. It's not understanding and being truthful.
No.
So really, really, really insightful. Hopefully that's given people some food for thought about multi-dog households. And if you are considering getting another dog to add to your family, really, really spend the time thinking about the choice that you make about that next dog. Gender, breed, energy level, you know, do your due diligence to get the right personality for your home, because none of us want to have that conversation where you are discussing, you know, rehoming or even potentially worse, because you haven't spent that time really, really thinking about that decision. So the next case that we had was Sid Great Dane, which was a dog that obviously the owners had Great Danes for years, and really it was about core thing that Sean worked on was his recall, to allow him to have more freedom and also really meeting his needs for where he's at. And sometimes when you have a dog with a challenge, he was an adolescent, which is a notoriously challenging time, which I would say was the real underlying issue with that particular dog, was adolescent behavior. But it's being aware of the process it takes to have a really great family pet. So Jo, what are your thoughts about navigating adolescent behavior? What would be your go-to tips on adolescence?
So I think my go-tos are probably, it's a really important time to be consistent. All the training that you've done up to the point that the hormones change, maybe don't expect more, but stick with it consistently. The dog goes deaf, it forgets its name. Generally, I find, and maybe you guys are different, but I generally find that the recall wheels are the wheels that fall off first.
Yes, yeah.
They go deaf, they don't know their name anymore, and you feel like you've wasted the past 7 months of hard work with your dog. So I think remain consistent, remain absolutely consistent, manage your time and your space really effectively, and safeguard emotions, really safeguard their emotions, because that fear period and that sensitive period, the kind of connections made in the brain during that time can really stick. So safeguard their emotions carefully. Do less, but be consistent.
Great advice. How about you, Vic? What are your thoughts on adolescence?
Yeah, I see adolescence, yes, it's a challenging time, but it's also an amazing time for growth. And we know that in adolescent dogs jump more. They're just more intense. They jump more. They like to be on different heights and different surfaces. It's a major time of growth, not only in their brains, but in their bodies. So a lot of climbing games. I do think, yes, we still got to teach our dogs what they can and what they can't do. But I also think that if we give dogs these adolescent dogs a lot of ability to discover stuff, to climb on stuff, and we also use this developing brain to teach them I don't like calling it impulse control. It's not really impulse control at all, but to really learn and to the selective hearing, to make things, to really look at what you're teaching and to make things even more fun, so that they're going to come back to you. But understand the dog that you have, understand what they're going through. There needs to be that curiosity. There needs to be just a minute, I'll come, but I got to do this first. There needs to be, because that's what they need to do in order to survive, right? They have to be curious. They have to become, to challenge. And also I'd say that be really aware with your adolescent dog, because not that social preferences change, right? From puppies to to young dogs, to adolescence and to adulthood. And what we see normally, puppies are very curious and want to go up and say pretty much hello to everybody. And then they get to a period where they might become a little bit more selective. But it seems like in adolescence, the adolescent will still go up to everybody. But instead of like, hello, they might be just a bit more intense.
Mhm.
And it's almost like, if you think about, I don't know, the frat party, the frat boys at the frat party, that's the kind of thing that you're getting with a lot of dogs, especially the male dogs. So I would just say, I think what people do with adolescent dogs is they try and kind of make their world a bit smaller and try and contain them. And I'm very different. I'm like, no, you make their world a bit larger and you give them opportunities where they're not contained. So that times when they do need to learn, they're more into learning. Do you see what I mean? So I feel like adolescent dogs need more space.
Yeah, so I would say, for me, adolescence is by far the most challenging phase of dog ownership. I think it's often when relationships are made or broken. So PSA for everybody, be kind to yourself and be kind to your dog.
Yeah.
It's a bumpy road, but you will absolutely get through it. As Vic and Joe have said, be consistent, be kind, be compassionate, and be patient. And just know that a lot of the things that your dog will be exhibiting, aggression, apprehension, anxiety, arousal, will pass. It is all down to hormones, brain development, neuro pathways being formed, and such and such. And it's really important that you have compassion for the dog, understanding that we have all been there, those that are just over the teenage phase, only by a couple of years. And you will come through it. You will come through it. You know, it is what people do in the teenage phase is they make judgments and attach labels to their dogs who aren't even formed or developed yet. And we do it all the time. Oh, he's stubborn, he's lazy, he's this, he's that. And it's the dog just can't help it. Big thing as well is think about enrichment, having exercise, playing interaction. And the other thing is sleep. You know, teenagers need sleep. And
my gosh.
You know, they need sleep and they think rest. So whilst in one day you're going to be doing more because that's when their body tells you that they need more, the next day they're going to need a quiet day. So it's feeling the rhythm of your dog as an individual and making sure that you are tuning yourself into your dog's needs. Advocate for them. As Joe said, think about where the positions that you put them in. Always think safety, so you can expand their world, but their world doesn't need to be uncontrolled. You can take them and expose them and give them more, but really look at the world from their perspective in what can be a turbulent time. But as I said, to me, it's when, for me, certainly as a dog owner, it's when my relationships are made with all my dogs. And when I come through that, I feel like our connection is deeper. Certainly. So for me, it's worth the work.
Sleep is the key here.
Yeah.
And having had a teenager, and Joe and I both had teenagers, you're coming up to it, Kamal.
Yeah.
So good luck. But yeah, teenagers, and then going into young adulthood.
Yeah.
So even though my daughter's 21 now, she's still like the sleep patterns are the almost the circadian rhythms are like, she goes later, needs to sleep longer, needs to wake up later, this and because in school we put all kids in a box, right? They have to get up, and here they have to get up at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then this is hard for teenagers. Yeah. And then they're labeled lazy or whatever, but they have to be in school here at 7:30 in the morning. And so you've got these 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds really struggling. And that in itself, there's so much anxiety around an early morning. Then they can't go to sleep until late. So now you're getting kids that are burnt out or teenagers that burnt out. I'm seeing the same in dogs. And I think what you say is really important. What I'm talking about is like, give your dog the ability just to experience and to be curious, freedom feels, sniff spots here, do that. But you don't have to be like, you don't have to be running your dog every day. You don't have to be carrying on the socializing with loads of people, and you don't. There are days, as Kamal said, that, okay, today we're just going to do this.
Yeah.
Because I think we're so focused on enrichment being something really active.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good point. I think the misconception about enrichment is, it's either give them a snuffle mat and that's it, or you do 784 million things. It's like, no. We can have diversity. To me, it's about dog ownership is about painting a picture. Use different colors and use different colors that are appropriate for the moment, the scenery, what you're trying to create. Sometimes, you need a dog to have a really great run where it can absolutely run flat out and the dog feels the wind in its face and it's running. Yeah, great. And then it's zonked out. Fantastic. Other days, that's the last thing that your dog needs. It needs a quiet day where it can mooch around and do some quiet, go to a quiet space, sniff around, hang out, watch the world go by. And it's understanding your dog. And there is the difficulty is, and I know people will probably ask, is what do I do when? I don't know. That's the hardest thing. It's about understanding who your dog is. And you know what? Free yourself from having to get it perfect. Try some stuff. If you get it wrong, change it. Just try it. Try taking the dog for a really good run. Note what happens the next day. Try having a quiet day and see what impact it has over, a period of time. It's all about collecting the data. Collect the data, make a decision, and then tailor that decision-making to your individual dog's needs. But notoriously difficult. Adolescence is not for the faint-hearted, as they say. So the final case that we had was the little terrier Sid with Joe, who was a little bit of a menace when it comes to delivery people. Joe, do you want to just give us some insight into that little dog?
Yeah, so Buddy was his name. The thing I love about Buddy is he is such a great communicator. He gave off the best body language, I think, of any dog I met at the Dog Academy this series. He was so clear. And what I loved was as soon as his family understood what he was trying to say in very serious terrier fashion, suddenly his whole world and their whole world changed. He's one of the most playful dogs that I had the chance to work with at the Dog Academy this time. For such an old dog as well, he was so playful. But he didn't, he had a bite history. He'd bitten multiple delivery drivers. He had bitten Dawn, his owner, and he bit quite hard. He didn't inhibit his bite particularly well. But it was really, for him, it was really about understanding his motivation and his needs. And I think he was quite a conflicted dog in that he was social. He did like people, he liked dogs, he liked contact, he liked play, but it was very much on his terms. And he could be easily overwhelmed. And then there was a slightly anxious edge to him as well. So for him, it was really about understanding the effect of the environment on him and deciding what he was capable of that day, that time, that moment. But I love his communication skills. People think growling is bad. I love a good growl.
You know what, Joe? If there is one little bit of footage that absolutely explains a language, and escalating up that ladder, it was that. I think that needs to be taken and shown to everybody when you were taking them through on the iPad, when he's growling because he's being touched and stroked, he's growling, and then that's not stopping anything. So then he escalates a little and he's showing his teeth, and then that escalates to really like showing everything. And that progression was so amazing for people who were watching. They couldn't help but get it. It was just, your story made me cry. I don't know what it is, Joe, but your stories always make me cry.
You're not the only one. I don't know why.
It was just incredible to see that. And they got it. And when they saw it and you told them, that's when she broke down, because she realized, oh my God. And again, not blaming them. It's what many people, they don't understand dog behavior very well, or they misinterpret. Or when you're in it, it's really difficult for you to see what's going on. You need somebody from the outside.
You don't know what you don't know. And then suddenly suddenly you learn, and this wonderful world opens up, and you get it, and you can't unsee it then. And then everyone's dog that you're looking at, you're like, oh, he's not very happy, or oh, that dog feels a bit uncomfortable, or it's brilliant. And what I would say about, we talked about consistency and putting the work in with your dog. Don and Dawn, the family, Buddy's guardians, have just been fantastic. They've been so good. They took the information and they ran with it. He has not bitten anyone. He is friends with all of the delivery drivers. The baby gate's gone. We don't need it anymore.
Wow.
I know. And this week I'm really lucky. I've made friends with Dawn. And we contact each other quite a lot, which is so nice. And she phoned me on Tuesday. She's like, have you got 5 minutes for a call? So I, yeah, of course, thinking she's going to need some help. And she said, I've just got to tell you that our boiler broke yesterday, and the engineer came in the house, and within 5 minutes, Buddy was taking his toys to the engineer, and he was playing.
Wow.
So if you understand the motivation and you read the body language and you respond to the dog's emotional and playful needs, go, and they put the work in. And it's just
there you go. I mean, and that is why the Dog Academy is so brilliant in what it does. Is so brilliant, because not all of our cases are just going to be like, oh, it's all fabulous. And we say, hey, this is work in progress. This is a start. But you have stories like that, and you have such intense behavior, which does such a 180. It's like my Charlie, the pug that has separation anxiety, and was like, you have such 180, and people, once they understand their lives, it just opens their lives up, all of their lives up. It's amazing. That's what BDA does so well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's hopefully what we've all been really, we've all had cases in certainly the first and second series where people have got and to be fair, all shout out to the owners who come, in various states of a breakdown with their dogs. They are open to our suggestions. They are committed to the process. They understand that that we only are giving them the tools. They need to go away and work at it. And they do, and the results are just phenomenal, really. It's quite inspiring, really, to see them. But 3 fantastic cases. Again, next week is our final episode of the BDA, which obviously we've got mixed feelings about. But we're going to be doing another catch-up of these, and hopefully, you can tune in next week. So there is questions and points. I'm going to go through those now. Let's have a look. So, Melanie said, I think that for a long time, vets encourage you to spay and neuter early in the dog's life. So many owners have limited experience of seasons and their implications. Yeah, that's a really valid point. And I would say there is a lot of truth in that. And I think that my personal opinion about spaying and neutering is it has to be down to individual. There's pros and cons, and you can argue it both ways. A lot of people find the trade-off of having an entire male or female more complex, and that in itself comes with a level of commitment and understanding. And sometimes spaying and neutering can be the thing that can alleviate some of that. Sometimes it's not the great choice for the dog, and it sometimes can contribute to things. But it's really understanding all the implications of that decision and doing what's best for the individual. How about you guys? Any thoughts about that one?
It's interesting between countries, because here in America, I think it's such a valid point. Here in America, everything is spayed and neutered, unless you're breeding your dog, unless it's pretty much everything is spayed and neutered, especially down south. It does differ from state to state, but most of the time, actually, dogs are spayed and neutered because of our pet overpopulation problem. So actually, if you have an entire dog, you're seen as irresponsible.
Wow.
But then you go over to England, and it's very different there. So for me, when I came over and I was living here and working here as a trainer, I was just what I became used to. And then going back to England, when I started filming It's Me or the Dog again over in England, I'm like, what are all these dogs? Why are they all entire? This is crazy. But then you understand the nuances of it. And I absolutely agree. And so people here, nobody really experiences what happens when a female goes into season unless you're a breeder.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so Lucy said, missed the beginning, sorry. Did one dog end up being rehomed then? If so, shame, but hopefully the owners understand they did the best thing for them given all the circumstances. No, I don't think that did they I don't think they did
No,
they?
I don't think so. I do think that they could utilize the mum a bit more.
Yeah.
And mum was open and willing and like, please, please, please use me. But the last time that I spoke to them, they weren't in a very happy place. And that's because they weren't doing much and they had tried. But as you said, Kamal, 6 months, I said, this is actually a life change.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they were prepared for that.
So hard to stay motivated when the results are taking time, which it does take time. But as an owner in that situation, it's so hard. And if you were a trainer seeing those people every week, then I think maybe they've got a chance of staying motivated. But that's just not realistic.
No. Yeah. And as I said, when I was giving my own personal experience, it took at least 6 months where I felt, okay, they could be together. And I'd say it took, so you're talking a year's worth of work where I went, okay, we're now in a good, healthy place. And that was absolute commitment. That was not a day when I didn't work at it. And I mean, so, it isn't an easy process. And, don't get me wrong, if I thought there was a quick fix, but I knew there wasn't. And I knew there wasn't a quick fix. I knew it was just about their relationship was broken. It was very normal dog behavior, female, in heat, etc. So, it just took a lot of work on my part. But I'd say a lot of people, it isn't that work in itself is a lot. So you need to just really go eyes wide open.
And I feel like Theo would have been very happy being an only dog with mum.
Yeah.
And Graham and Leo could live a very happy life together.
Yeah.
But again, they want all their babies together. I understand it.
Yeah.
Theo was her favorite. So what are you going to do?
Yeah. So Matt said, my lab has only child syndrome. Don't think I'm getting any more, would be wise. So yeah, it is a big decision to get another dog and to add to your family dynamics, especially if you're happy with the environment and the way things are. That new entity could really, really upset the apple cart. And you need to, I always make the assumption that my dogs are going to be totally hate the new puppy. They're going to want to eat it. They're going to detest it. Everybody's going to be out of sorts. I assume the worst. And if it's anything better than that, then I'm like, oh, this is a pleasant surprise. And because, because I'm somewhat pessimistic about it, I then put in safety measures and safety protocols so that the integration into my home is very intentional. It's like, supervised, dogs, through barriers. And then once I feel everybody's comfortable, it's little bits of interaction, very, very supervised and so forth and so forth. Some dogs, it's like I could welcome in. I know that reading them, they'd be fine. But other dogs, it takes more time. And you need to really, really understand that it's a process, Yeah. Okay. Matt said, do you think too many people with multi-dog household are too quick to buy or adopt on impulse? I don't know about on impulse, but I think that people definitely have the, it's lovely. I mean, I love having multiple dogs. I really do. I wouldn't ever have just one. I love that feeling of owning a lot of dogs. But I think that, as I said, I think it's just something not to be taken lightly. You really need to consider the choice, and its breed, its character, its temperament, its size dynamics, all that stuff needs to be considered when you are bringing another new dog into your home. For me, it's not something that I would advise anybody to do lightly. Just do your due diligence and your homework, to be truthful. Any thoughts, you guys, on that point?
I don't know if I'd do it again. I mean, I've only ever had 2 at a time. But I'm not sure I'll do it again. Just for things like traveling, vehicles, how many cars, how many dogs can I fit in my vehicle, the cost of food, insurance, veterinary bills. I think I noticed for my dogs when Indy got a lot older and he needed a lot more care and his social skills slipped a little. I think Twist found it really hard. And Twist was patient with him and he was lovely with him, but I think it was difficult. And I found splitting myself between the two, I always felt like I wasn't quite doing enough for anybody. So I don't know. And things like, here's my big one, motorway service stations. We need to get out for a pee break and I'm terrified I'm going to drop a lead in the middle of the motorway somewhere. So none of this is rational particularly, but
But you raise a really, really valid point there about the cost implications. So, like recently, as it happens, when you have multiple dogs, I had a run of dogs having, have to go to the vet, various, it just happens. It's just the way that sod's law. And you're talking within a relatively short space of time, you're talking thousands and thousands of pounds on vet bills. Now, thank God, my dogs aren't insured because I have too many. I'm in a position where I was fine to pay the bills. But if that kept on happening, I've got to factor that into my monthly expenses, and that's a really, really, really big thing. Having the dream of having multiple dogs comes with repercussions, and it comes with complications, and it comes with consequences, and it's really about not just about the dynamics of the dogs, but the practicalities. Can you afford another dog? Do you have the space? Do you have the time? Do you have the energy, etc., to integrate them? So I think it's something that people often do without that intentional mindset, and then they have fallout because of it. So just really think about it, really. So Melanie said, dog training is a lifelong commitment. My two are 4 and 13, and we do training every day. Absolutely. I think that's part of the joy of owning a dog, interacting with them. And so it doesn't have to be, anything specific, but just interacting, being around them is a commitment. And, it's like all relationships. Vicky's just celebrated her 20 plus year. It's like it's commitment. You've got to make that commitment. Even after all those years, you've still got to make that commitment to spend time together, invest, understand the person needs their space. You need It isn't a case of, well, that's it. We've signed up for that, and we all.
Yeah. It's not all rainbows and butterflies.
Absolutely.
It does take work. Relationships take work, and commitment is everything. So
Matt said, watching Sean out the big field with a live dog is very entertaining to watch. Yeah, Matt, I think Sean is definitely in his wheelhouse when he's running around a field with a big dog.
He is.
So maybe if we did have that, he'd do it topless. I'm sure that would increase our
right. So he can show his tattoos off.
Teenagers are terrible. Yeah, teenagers are definitely challenging, shall we say? But they definitely, as I said, it is a challenging period of development. And once you've had as many dogs, you sort of like rolled your eyeballs. And like when Vicky I was laughing to myself when they went the optional recall entity. I almost like you're waiting for the day. Oh, okay, it's a Monday. You've lost your recall. Fabulous. You had it yesterday, but that's fine. And you sort of go, okay, here we go. But buckle up.
There you go.
Let's have a look. Lucy said, managing adolescents must have a lot to the individual, surely. Much like what good socialization look like varies so much by individual and their genetics, right? Absolutely. So some dogs, I have had dogs that I think their adolescent angst lasted about a week, and they went, oh, that was a bit too much. I want to be back to being a good boy or girl. And that was it.
Yeah,
it was like, done. Yeah. But I would say the vast majority of my dogs, adolescent challenges lasted, longer than that. And some of them have been really, really extreme in what they're like, aggression and fearful behavior, apprehensive behavior. And it's lasted a real considerable amount of time. And yes, absolutely, you can have some dogs that breeze through adolescence, like you can have some kids that breeze through their teen years. But I would say, having worked with young offenders and in with a lot of young people, I would say that's the oddity. If you have a teen that doesn't experience some sort of emotional behavioral challenge, or I would say they're not the standard version. I'd say that has been applicable for dogs. I don't know whether you guys have any thoughts on that. I'd say it'd be unusual to have a teenage dog that didn't display some sort of atypical adolescent behavior. I would say they were somewhat of an anomaly.
Yeah, agree. I would say that would be the exception rather than the rule.
Absolutely.
Indy was it was fleeting with Indy and not particularly extreme. Twist was the polar opposite, and it was quite a shock.
It was quite a shock. Yeah, I'd say I concur.
So I run puppy class and explain adolescence is coming. So really explain to be consistent. I find that some customers leave as they feel puppies have learned behavior and stop training, thinking they're due training. That is absolutely the scenario. They sort of go, deuces, I'm out, I've done my training, tick the box. And then you hear from them several months later, oh my God, he's done X, Y, and Z. And then he's come back. Absolutely. And that is part of the job. Just smile sweetly. It offered them the option to remain working with you, but most people go, no, I've done that. Yeah, brilliant. He's fabulous. We love him. We're so happy. Normally when they're about sort of 4 or 5 months, and then you see them back like 6 months later with their hair pulling out, wondering why the hell they got this dog. But yeah, that's standard.
That's
Exactly
when the
that.
village really does come into play, doesn't it, Kamal?
Yeah.
That's when the village you really need. Build your support system. If that's one piece of advice I could give for people that are their dogs are going to adolescence, build a support system before they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Lucy said, how I worked through my sensitive rescue collie's adolescence was pretty different to how we work my chill cockapoo show cock across. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely down to the individual, and adolescent behavior can manifest itself differently with different dogs and certainly breeds. What you tend to find is that you will see very strong breed characteristics or traits coming out in adolescence. So your herdy breed will, the desire to herd will increase. Your guardy breed will want to be more vigilant and spooky and apprehensive. Your dog that likes to hunt will start to range. So it's really being aware of those changes and also providing alternatives that are healthy and that are attached to you, so that you're enhancing your relationship and not allowing the environment to consistently reinforce the dog to the detriment of your relationship. I hope that makes sense.
Yes.
Janice said, can I just say the episode with the 5 Bassets was where train to stop barking inspired me to stop my noisy German Shepherds to stop barking. It's a work in progress, but they've improved. So thank you. I always make sure I've got treats in my pocket. That's amazing, Janice. We love
that, Janice.
love those comments. Okay, Amy said, it took us 18 months to teach our first dog that growls would be listened to. It was very overwhelming having a dog that is that default to bite. He's still a sensitive boy, but worlds away from the scared boy he brought home 10 years ago. He taught me more than any dog could. Good for you, Amy.
Love that.
And I would say the growl is probably one of the most misunderstood forms of communication, I'd say, across all dogs in all countries. People just don't understand that, that it's a way in which dogs communicate and not to view it as a challenge, the aggressive, dogs are trying to, it's that phrase, isn't it? Dogs will are trying to communicate as long as you listen. And it's our job to try and listen to them, really, figuratively, metaphorically speaking. Michelle said, when we know better, we do better. Absolutely. I think that's all of us, really. Let's have a look. Hulwin said, definitely had ups and downs with my intact male. My first dog as an adult and grew up with neutered dogs, so the learning curve has been steep. I'm broadly in favor of keeping dogs intact for health and development reasons, but I think many people like me can get taken by surprise by the hormone. Absolutely. And the key thing is to be compassionate and kind to yourself. It is a bumpy first. If it's your first experience of it, it can be really overwhelming. So batten down the hatches, be kind, be patient, be committed, and trust that it is a phase that will pass. Okay, let's have a look.
And I do think there are a lot of studies out there now that early spay and neuter can have quite detrimental effects on dogs. And so I always say check with your veterinarian, but also I would get a couple of opinions or even 3 opinions, 4 opinions, and do your research on it. Because even here now, where everybody wants to do mandatory spay and neuter laws, I'm like, wait a second, hold on. Hold on. And yeah, so even here now, they're kind of starting to learn.
Yeah. So I've had 3 once. I've had 3 once, never again. 2 not easy either. So yeah, definitely a big decision to get a third or second dog. Rachel said, I'm looking forward to becoming a multi-dog household tomorrow. I'm deliberately sort of female puppies. I think Matt will struggle with adolescent male. Great decision making, great thinking, which is the key thing. Just really decide on the dog that's best for your family, and that's applicable to anybody, but certainly thinking about increasing numbers. Let's have a look. So Hulwin Price, my female was spayed at 2. She had a lot more anxiety and reacted to afterwards, which seemed like a personality change, but was told the hormone change can be extreme sometimes. She had 3 seasons before that, and her spay was delayed due to fandom pregnancy. Definitely lots more to consider with the girls. Yeah, I would say you really need to, as I said, speak to a professional, get some help. I've had spayed dogs, spayed females, neutered males, entire females, entire males. I've had all the variations, and I definitely think it's dog dependent, and really knowing your dog, irrespective of what decision you make, you still have to consider building the dog's confidence, educating them, advocating for them, irrespective of whether they're, and because their personality is their personality. So yeah. Mel said there's a book, Walking the Dog, Motorway Walks for Drivers and Dogs. Oh, great one for Joe, who's got a really good one.
Sorry, say that again. But I'm still here. I think unbelievably, my camera, I think, has given up because it's too hot.
Because it's too hot, yeah.
So could you read that again?
Yeah, Melanie Inch said there is a book, Walking the Dog, Motorway Walks for Drivers and Dogs. It gives places to stop when traveling. So yeah, alleviate your anxiety. It's a book recommendation.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Let's have a look. A couple more questions. Matt Tyson, my boy ended up with dog reactivity because he had so many other male dogs want to come and punch him in the face. I tried the chemical for him to see if it helped, but it didn't really. Other dogs still hated him and became more anxious as well. When it wore off, I didn't replace it. Now I spend time worrying about my dog's reactivity towards mine rather than mine reacting. So having an entire male dog definitely comes with additional understanding that you have to be aware of, because it's not, and certainly when they're in that phase of adolescence, because you'll definitely find other dogs will become uneasy, unsettled, aggressive towards them because their hormones are emitting. And it does take a real amount of awareness and not putting them in situations, if you can avoid it, where they are triggered. It is easier said than done. But as I said, and I said earlier, be kind and compassionate to yourself. It's not easy raising a dog full stop, and raising one that has challenges. Be kind to yourself. And I think that's what the Bad Dog Academy really does articulate. The relationship that we have with our dogs is a journey, and it is one that we definitely have tried to show people nuances of why people get dogs, the great connection that they can give us. And sometimes it's a bit of a bumpy road, but that's part of the process, I would say, personally.
Yeah, agree.
Okay, final point is Beth said, my dog seems to be terrified of strangers or people she doesn't see often outside of agility. How would you help her through? She backs away, ears back, and occasionally barks. She's 2 years old. Could this be a bit of adolescent behavior? Absolutely could be adolescence. Also be hormones. And obviously we don't know where the dog comes from, etc. But the other thing, as I would say, is don't be afraid to advocate for your dog. If your dog isn't comfortable around people that she doesn't know, just create distance and move the dog away. I'm very big into, I don't put my dogs in those situations that I feel that they're going to be compromised until I'm in a position to do some counter conditioning or desensitization or appropriate socialization. I'm very conscious of that. But I think sometimes it's social pressure that says that our dogs have to be all things to all people. Advocate for your dog. Don't necessarily put them in a situation where they feel uncomfortable until you then can work on it proactively, and be mindful that hormones can make your dog behave in a way that is out of character. And as long as you don't draw unnecessary attention to it, it can and normally will pass. Vic or Joe, any thoughts about that one to finish up on?
Yeah, no, I concur, Kamal. I concur. It can be a tricky time, and even if you've had a dog that's been social and then they go through adolescence, but then they have their social preferences, that's another big thing. Understand what your dog's social preferences are, and don't force, because forcing is the wrong thing. We all have social preferences. When we were young and toddlers, we probably played with everybody, didn't we, at nursery school? And then as we grew, we suddenly started to pick our friends who we wanted to play with. And then into adolescence, we get our little cohort. We don't really allow other people into that cohort. And then we get into adulthood, and then our preferences change again. And it's the same for our dogs. So really understand your dog's social preferences and what they feel comfortable with and what they don't.
Absolutely. Great advice. So thank you very much for your question. Thank you for joining us this afternoon to discuss the cases from the last episode of the Bad Dog Academy. We genuinely hope that you're enjoying the series as much as we feel passionately about it. Final episode next week. Hopefully it's going to be a great one. We know it's going to be a great one to go out on. Obviously, share your thoughts about the series. Put it on social media. Let people know what you thought about the series, because we definitely are really proud of it. And your kind comments have definitely been what's lifted us, in this whole process, and really given us that desire to sort of really do what we do. So thank you very much for that. We're doing a follow-up conversation next week, the last one of this series of the Bad Dog Academy. Again, if you haven't checked it out, you can still do so on streaming services on Channel 4. If not, join Channel 4 in the UK, 8 p.m. Thursday, last episode next weekend. As I said, you can go back retrospectively watch it. Thank you all for your support. Thank you, Joe and Vic, for joining. It's been a pleasure. See you all later.
Bye.
Thank